For nearly 50 years, Biotics Research has been a trusted leader in the nutritional supplement industry. Known for uncompromising quality and innovative delivery systems, the company continues to advance the field through ongoing research, unique formulations, and rigorous quality control. Family-owned with a rich history, Biotics Research is most proud of the strong partnerships it has built with the healthcare professionals. On Adjusted Reality, we talk about living strong, vibrant, and healthy. And that starts with the environment around us, whether it's practice or at home. Force of Nature Pro makes it easy to protect your whole being and those you serve with an EPA-registered hospital-grade disinfectant that's powerful against germs, yet free from harsh toxic chemicals. It's safe on hands, treatment tables, and everyday surfaces while supporting better indoor air quality. Plus, it reduces single-use plastics and costs up to 80% less than many traditional products. If you're ready to align your life, your practice, your family routine with a cleaner, more sustainable future, go to forceofnatureclean.com for home and forceofnaturepro.com for exclusive business pricing and limited time offers. Healthy space, healthy practice, healthy life with Force of Nature Pro. Welcome to Adjusted Reality, a podcast series trusted by the adjusted and brought to you by the Foundation for Chiropractic Progress, where we learn from athletes, celebrities, influencers, and healthcare professionals about how to optimize health in a fun, relatable way. Join me, Dr. Sherry McAllister, as we welcome the founder of Concussionology, Dr. Evan Mladenoff. Dr. Evan is an internationally recognized chiropractor and sports medicine consultant with decades of experience helping people achieve peak performance and optimal health. Based in Overland Park, Kansas, he is one of the few chiropractors to have served as a team physician for both professional and Olympic athletes in 2 countries. Dr. Mladenoff's whole being approach goes beyond treating symptoms, focusing instead on uncovering root causes and creating the right conditions for lasting wellness. His expertise has supported world-class performers from NFL and MLB teams to Olympic athletes and even the National Ballet of Canada. Today, he brings the same high-performance strategies to every patient, empowering them to achieve superior health and resilience. We want to welcome Dr. Mladenoff to today's Adjusted Reality. Welcome aboard.
Well, thank you so much. So that I'll make it easy for you because M and L don't come together in the English language ever. So that's why they call me Dr. M for short.
I'm grateful that you said that because you're so right. Trying to figure it out as you're like, okay, I know you as my friend, which is Evan, so I have to use the last name.
Okay, so here's how my staff at the office, my wife says, well, it's like Aladdin, right? And then put an M in front of it, Mladenoff.
Mladenoff. There we have it. Okay, now you've already
M is still
adjusted
easier.
it. That's it. It really is.
Yeah.
Evan is so much easier for me.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me, Sherry.
It's delightful. I'm going to kick it off with, for those that are listening, I wanted to share a little bit about the visual aspect of Adjusted Reality. And we have Dr. Evan with me. In the back of his background are 2 phenomenal pieces that I asked about before we started the podcast. So would you just kick it off with the jerseys that are behind you? Because it's fairly epic.
Well, the jersey on top is a Pro Bowl jersey, number 68 from Will Shields. And we joke, he and I broke into the NFL the same year, his rookie year, and he was a 3rd-round draft pick. And early in the season of his rookie year, the right tackle got hurt, and Will went in and took his place and never gave up his spot for 16 years. And I believe he still holds the record for consecutive starts by an offensive lineman at 321. So he signed the jersey at the Dr. M for 321. Will Shields Hall of Fame, I believe it was 2006. 15, he went into the Hall of Fame.
That's
And then the jersey on the
outstanding.
bottom is the Super Bowl jersey from Harrison Butker when he kicked the winning field goal in Arizona, in Phoenix, when they won that Super Bowl, the first of their three in this era. So Harrison was kind enough to give us that jersey and signed it to us. So now
You
there's
know, it's
one
a
other thing you
beautiful
didn't
thing.
see. Now Chiefs fans will not like this, but yes, they will. You see a Denver Broncos helmet over my other shoulder, and that is a Super Bowl helmet that Neil Smith gave me. Now he was with the Chiefs for his whole career, but then they let him go, and he went to Denver for 2 years and won two Super Bowls. So Neil gave me his helmet. Um, so he's still a Chiefs player at heart, but he won two Super Bowls with Denver, and that's his helmet that he gave me.
You know, it's a beautiful thing that you have those pieces. It reflects not only how much appreciation they have for you, but the impact you had in their lives. And I think that's one of the key perspectives when an athlete comes in and they respect what you do and they know the value and the impact that you bring to what they do as well. And it's not easy to give away some of the stuff that you love when you're an athlete because those jerseys mean a lot. And I'm sure that helmet does too. It's being able to refocus, reignite, and be the best you can be on the film. So tell me, how did you end up being in this position where you were really being the athlete's what we'll call the secret sauce to success?
No, you're exactly right. We often call ourselves the best kept secret in Kansas City. Well, we've expanded that now to the best kept secret in the NFL, and then we expanded that to the best kept secret in America. Why stop there, right?
Right.
And it's real simple. A lot of my mentors taught me, and I had a lot of great mentors that put me on their shoulders so I could see farther. And they always said to me, yeah, all you can worry about is the one that's laying in front of you. If you just focus and concentrate on the person that's in front of you and do the best you can with that one person, everything else will take care of itself. And that has been more true about treating athletes. And the very, very first athlete, the Chiefs player I ever saw when I moved here, was a patient who came in and he says, Doc, uh, can you fix knees? And I said, well, I think I can. Tell me about it. He says, well, I don't know about it, but it's my next door neighbor. He says, can I bring my next door neighbor with me next time? Well, it happened to be a Chiefs defensive lineman.
Aha.
But it was just his next door neighbor. It was Buddy, right? Just like we all have neighbors. And I fixed him. And he brought in a player, and it started just like our regular patients. They refer other people that they love and want to be taken care of. And of course, they want their team to do really well. And if you just take care of the one in front of you, for doctors listening, and for patients, if your doctor is, on his phone or he's doing scatterbrain stuff and he's not focusing on you while the doc's taking care of you and he's someplace else, like, okay, maybe we better just reel the doc in and say, hey, doc, I'm here. It's my turn. Focus your attention. I mean, and I wouldn't be afraid to say that to the doctor, because if the doctor takes offense to that, maybe you should go to a different doctor.
Right. You know, that's perspective is key, and you want to be center to the doctor's world when they walk in your room. And that's why they have coined the term patient-centered care. Is if the patient has to work hard to get the doctor's eye contact, I think that's a vote of on non-confidence. It's now, I'm not sure if the doctor's more worried about putting his soap notes in his findings into the computer versus actually listening to me and asking the appropriate questions. And that's probably why your practice grew so much. And then you brought in the high performers, the NFL, the MLB, and the Olympic athletes. Is when one athlete, because the fruit, as my mom would always tell me, does not fall far from the tree. And when your body is in fact your tool that you're going to be using to make your living, that's the most important part of anything that you do. So you want to trust it with the very best. And so beautifully said at the beginning of this podcast was that we are a secret still, and we're building up to be the overnight success, right, Dr. M?
Yeah, the overnight century success, right?
It's really critical because we focus on these things as you have noted in your past, is you want to have a whole being approach to your health. It's not just, oh, I have an ankle sprain, because the ankle sprain is one part. But tell me a little bit about how you approach your patient in kind of that global perspective of whole being and why it matters to you in practice.
Oh boy, that's a loaded question. Let me take a different approach, and that is what would I consider to be the perfect patient? And the perfect patient would be is Sherry, if you come into my office and said, "Hey, Dr. M, uh, I don't have any aches or pains. My blood tests are perfect. Um, Everything's perfect in my life. Tell me how I can be better. Help me be better." That to me is like the perfect patient for me and the challenging patient, because that's what these athletes come in with. They sometimes, a lot of times, the first time we see them, like we started seeing some rookies this year, and the older guys are saying we got to coach these young guys up so that they can play 12 and 15 years like I am. And so they might come with an injury, but our big picture is, you ever heard of Usain Bolt?
Yes.
This is,
Oh,
this is my
yes.
favorite story of all time. So why did Usain Bolt get examined and treated before and after every race? So if he goes to the Olympics and he won the 100, the 200, and the 4x100 relay, there's 3 rounds of each of those. That means he's getting evaluated in a week's time 18 times. Oh, and by the way, he had no pain, but he's got a bucket full of gold medals.
Sure.
So if it's good enough for that human being to perform at a super high optimal level, isn't that good enough for you, Sherry? Isn't that good for all these, isn't that good for everyday people, that you can be better than you can imagine with the right kind of care? And that kind of care is what you and I and a bountiful of doctors do by taking care of the physical being, the emotional, spiritual being, the chemical being, and the electromagnetic being, a multi-dimensional approach to the human body and making it work perfect.
Oh, and you say that so profoundly too, because the jersey on the wall, he played 300 plus games, and he was
Without
able
missing, without
without
missing.
missing. And that's almost a Herculean moment when you think about no one even mentally really. I mean, there's always that day where you're like, yeah, I'm not doing it. I'm just not doing it. I got it. I don't got it. But
Yeah.
but it really was because he had someone in his corner that could say, let's take what we know and build it on to what we can be. And it's him getting back on the field and saying, I got this because I have a Dr. M behind me that's going to ensure that I'm optimized and I'm capable. And that pushes things forward. But sometimes they're going to end up having problems. And those problems, I think, are what you focused on and in your past, because you saw a lot. You saw a lot of head traumas and you wrote a book about that. Share with me a little bit about the book that you wrote and why you wrote it.
Well, the book I wrote, we'll just pull it up here. It's called Doc, When Can My Kid Play? And it's about concussion. So when an athlete has a concussion, the first thing the athlete or the family wants to know is like, Doc, when can my kid play? Or the coach wants to know, Doc, when can my player play? The player wants to know, Doc, when can I play? And it's a very complicated situation. So the reason I wrote my book is when our first child was 2 years old, I was lecturing, and I came out of the airport. My wife met me with her in her arms. She wasn't ready. I wasn't ready. The Diana lunged for me, and she fell and hit her head at 2 years old. Fast forward, Sandy, my wife is chaperoning my son's hockey team, a bunch of 10-year-old kids. I'm on the Chiefs game on the sideline. So they were driving home from Chicago on this bus. There was a bad blizzard storm. The bus went out of control. It hit a lamppost. She was sitting behind the driver. She turned to yell at the kids, and basically she cut a piece of 3/4 inch plexiglass in half with her face. So she had like 7 fractures in the nose and facial bone areas. She never had any problems with her eye, but it's like, okay, it's at my front door again. Fast forward, Dr. Chip played college hockey and out east, and he had 3 concussions that he didn't tell anybody about because he wanted to play.
Of course.
And then in 2018, I was pedaling my bicycle at a high speed. A guy ran a stop sign, plowed me over. My head bounced off the pavement 3 times. There was 11 fractures in my helmet. And I couldn't feel the right side of my body for a couple of days. And so the good news is within 15 minutes, my son, Dr. Chip, was there starting all the protocols that we put in place. Now, part of the protocols were developed by that 2-year-old daughter that hit her head. Well, she was hired. She's a chiropractor also. She was hired away from us by a former NFL player named Brian Jennings. He wanted to start a concussion care clinic in Phoenix. So he hired her away from us. This would be in 2015. So I get a call and she says, "Hey, Dad, how long were you working in the NFL?" I said, "About 12 years." She says, "Well, I got a new patient today. We're going to do our concussion protocol." And I said, "Oh, okay." She says, "Have you ever heard of Franco Harris?" Well, if you're not a football fan, you'll say, "So." Well, if you're a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, you'd say, "Heck yeah." And even if you're a casual football fan, you'd know that name. And she says, "Dad, I think I got this." And I said, "Okay, I think the student has surpassed the teacher."
I love
So,
it.
so she developed a lot of the protocols that we developed. So this started out of a need to take care of my family, of dealing with concussions, and then it just grew from there. We started taking care of people by simply saying, you know what, if someone has hit their head, and it doesn't have to be a sporting event. If you look at our geriatric population, they have a lot of slips and falls, and your head doesn't have to hit anything to get a concussion. Because what happens is your brain's like jello, and just picture. I should have a model around here. I do. Okay, so your brain's like this, right? And it kind of will slosh around like that inside your head. So you've got your brain, then you got some liquid, and then you got the bones around the head like that. Well, it'll hit the bones on the inside and then slosh back to the other side and hit the back end, or the other 180 degrees, the opposite end of the brain. And then it starts to swell. So Sherry, if you took a hammer and banged your thumb now, what would happen?
It would probably be very painful first, and then it
No,
would
it'll
start
get
going blue.
swollen. It would get
Yes.
swollen first, then it would get painful.
Swollen
Well, the same,
first, then painful.
then pain.
Then it starts to turn color.
And then you start yelling. Okay. So that's a true. I always have fun with the doctors. That's a neurological videotape that you need to know all those little details, right? But that's what happens to your brain. Now the difference is, your brain is encased in bone, so the swelling doesn't, it can't expand like your thumb does. So wherever it swells, it pushes into the bones, and where that swelling is where you're going to get symptoms. So if you have the front part of your head be the major part of the swelling of the brain, okay, you may have cognitive problems. You may have trouble remembering things. If it's the back part of your head where the swelling occurs, you might have balance issues. You might have speech issues. So depending on where your your brain gets swollen is where you're going to have major symptoms.
It's really critical for parents because it's a scary moment when your child, like you, hits their head, and the first thing you need to know is what do I do? And that is probably one of the questions that many of our parents out there listening today is, as soon as you see someone injured and you're not even sure if they have a concussion, what do you tell those parents? What did you do so that they can start monitoring? Because there's a lot of myths that still exist. And that's why I love having you on, is we can really level up in our understanding of concussions and what the people who are going to be supporting those unfortunate injured patients can do. So can you share a little bit about, you wrote the book for obvious reasons because it's going back into play, and we'll get there, but let's start with just the very beginning part of this.
Okay. I always say, if in doubt, go to ER. Don't even think about it. Just go to ER. Now, having said that, the purpose of ER is to determine, is there a life-threatening event? Is there internal bleeding? Is this person's life at risk? Once they've determined that that's not the case, it's almost like they wash their hands of it and say, okay, you don't need us. Go home, go to your family doctor. But if in doubt, go to ER. So here are some big things. If there's loss of consciousness, you need to take them to ER. If you see anything, if there's an open wound in the head, they need to go to ER. We had one patient, an elderly patient he's not old, but in his 60s. He fell, hit his head, and he's bleeding out of one ear. They actually life flighted him to ER. So any bleeding open wounds to the head, you need to go to ER. One of the other things you need to make sure is, okay, did they swallow their tongue? Sometimes they can swallow their tongue. You might have to reach in and pull their tongue out. Now, those are severe cases. But if they're just not right, if they cannot keep a conversation, if they don't know where they are, so they could have what's called retrograde amnesia, which means they don't remember stuff before they hit their head. And then they can have anterograde amnesia, which you usually don't see this right at the scene, but they don't remember stuff that happened after the event. So if you don't see them for a couple of days, then you start asking, well, where were you? What team were you playing? Who was the first person there? What ER did you, and they don't remember those kind of things. Okay, that's called anterograde amnesia. Now, there's a new field developing in emergency medicine. It's called neuroworsening. And to me, it's like, okay, it's common sense. The patient's getting worse. Now, neuroworsening in its strictest terms is they're in the hospital already and they're declining and going towards an ominous event. Well, if you hit your head and you don't go to ER, you can still get worse because Sherry, here's what ER didn't tell you. You may not get symptoms for the first 72 to 96 hours. You may not have any symptoms at all, even if you did bang your head onto something. So no symptoms. Here's something else they didn't tell you. MRI, CT scan will not be positive in over 95% of the cases, may not be positive for a year later. Here's one of my favorite ones to all these jocks. The average male will have erectile dysfunction 1 year after a concussion. Now you have their attention. Yeah, now you have their attention. They say, "What? What do you mean, doc?" I said, "It's not just a bump on the head." And I learned from one of my mentors, and that's why we to be honest, we trademarked and registered the name Concussionology. And so I talk about what I call the Concussionology Matrix, kind of a spoof on the Matrix movie. And when someone has a concussion, there are 5 injuries that occur. Now, the question is, which one is the primary, but they all should be evaluated. And that's where modern medicine, modern doctors, even modern chiropractors, they stay in their pigeonhole and they don't evaluate the entire patient. So those 5 areas there can be neuroinflammation. These are chemical events that happen within less than 2 minutes of the concussion. Then there can be a vestibular injury. There can be a pituitary stalk injury. There can be a metabolic cascade, which is different than the neuroinflammation cascade. So, for example, a metabolic cascade within the first 2 minutes, there's a surge of calcium. So if you're taking a lot of calcium and you hit your head or you have a concussion, you better stop taking calcium because your brain is going to be infused with a lot of calcium within 2 minutes. And then the last one is that a cervical spine injury. So all 5 of those areas have to be examined. Well, guess what they examine at ER?
Yeah, you typically are.
They don't examine the neck.
Nope.
They don't examine the vestibular system. They don't examine the neuroinflammation. They do examine some of the metabolic stuff. And then they do a bunch of things to determine, okay, is this a life-threatening situation that the patient's in? Okay, so what do the physical therapists examine? Well, they examine the vestibular system. They don't check the neck. They don't check the neuroinflammation. They don't check the other 4 things. And what do the chiropractors check? They just check the neck stuff. Now, I'm here to tell you, the neck is the most neglected part of concussion care across the board in any profession. Correct. So this is like a home for the chiropractors, our profession. We're good at this stuff, okay? But you still have to pay attention to those other 4 areas.
The average person getting injured just had their reality adjusted because they're just thinking, oh, it's just my head.
Just a bump on the head.
Yeah, it's just a bump on the head. And I think for many that go to the ER and they get the blessing that, oh, it's a mild concussion.
Yes.
You hear that and you think, well, first you hit your head. Even though someone wants to use the word mild, it makes it synonymous with it's no big deal. Correct. And I think for most patients, especially parents of patients that have hit their heads, the younger people, is that hitting your head has outcome measures that need to be quantified and qualified. And using words like mild really doesn't do any justice. And it's kind of the older nomenclature. We don't really technically want to get into these words because it ends up being one of those tragic moments where you stop looking for signs and symptoms, you stop doing your due diligence, you don't get the care that you need in the other areas because it's just a bump on the head. So when they go through, and something that you said I think is really important to bring out, the signs may not show up for 96 hours.
Correct. Okay, so now something else happens is that when you start looking at the literature, they give you what it takes, how long it takes to get back to play. And really what they're saying is how long it takes to get the patient symptom free. So symptom free is not the same as recovered from a concussion, because if they don't get rid of the neuroinflammation within 4 hours, if you've heard of the term beta amyloid plaque, this is a substance that literally grows and wraps itself around the nerve endings in your brain that leads to Alzheimer's disease. There is deposition of beta amyloid plaque within 4 hours of a concussion. So if you just get rid of the symptoms and you don't get rid of the neuroinflammation, guess what's brewing for 10, 20, 30 years down the road? Mm-hmm. You're headed down the spectrum of cognitive decline. Okay. So here's one of my favorite studies. It was published in 2015 by Major League Baseball. They took two groups of players. They took one group of players that had a concussion, and they took another group of players that have had bereavement leave. So that means that their wife was having a baby or a member of the family dies. It was a non-injury leave from the team. And when they came back, they measured, okay, how did you do? Now, I'm not a baseball fan by any stretch of the imagination, but the baseball fans will know what, base on balls is their slugging percentage, all these metrics that they measure about hitters. And what they found was that when the concussed group came back, their metrics, their slugging percentage, their batting average, all those metrics went down, but they were symptom free. So then Major League Baseball says, okay, we should do something about this. So they redid the study. And what they did was they said, okay, now we're going to put in a concussion protocol. So they started the Major League Baseball concussion protocol. And they did the same thing, two groups like that, non-injured group versus the injured group. And here's what they found. The injured group, this was published in 2020, the injured group, they found it, okay, instead of taking 33.5 days to return to play, they could get it down to 18.4 or 5 days. So they dramatically cut it back. But guess what happened? They were symptom free, and a year later, their baseball batting average was still low. Their base on balls was low. Their slugging percentage was low. None of those metrics came back for the rest of their entire career. Sherry, here's what this means in English. I know this part. If you owned a baseball team and you're paying somebody $40 million to who knows how many millions of dollars to hit the ball, okay, he has a concussion. A year later, you have a AAA baseball player, a minor league player that you're paying $50 million a year, but he's symptom-free from his concussion. How's that working for you as an owner of that team? You see, that's the problem with concussion care. We could say that that's the problem with health care of any kind. Just getting rid of symptoms is not the only thing that needs to be done. You must restore proper function. Otherwise, you're going to get decreased performance, but then you risk going down that cognitive decline path. And I'm here to tell you, and I know you know this, once they've started down the cognitive decline path, it's hard to bring them back. What you basically are trying to do is prevent further cognitive decline and just keep them right where they're at.
This is so critical because you bring up the point that our adjusted reality listeners really, they get to hear this, but I think from an objective standpoint, symptoms are one part, function is another part. And as you've listened to the various athletes and influencers on adjusted reality, many of them will talk about the symptoms and then go directly to function, because most that are optimizing their performance are looking at function. They don't care. They'll work through bleeding out. They'll finish the game. They're not worried about, the amount of blood loss or the broken bone. They're all about function. Get me back to be able to do the sport that I want to do. The coaches and the owners have a number one priority. They want to ensure that the return on investment in those players is about function. It's not about symptoms.
Correct.
So with you being at the helm of that and now knowing that there's 5 components to really addressing the concussion, tell us how concussionology started to then pick up where a parent definitely has the deficit. Child loses the 96 hours, starts to have fundamental problems, functional problems. Then what do they do? What's the number one thing you would recommend to a parent or an athlete that recognizes that they don't have symptoms, but they're not the same? They don't feel the same. They're not acting the same. They're having difficulties.
Yeah, they know they're off,
Yep.
right? And that's the great thing about high performance people and high performance athletes, especially, in order for an athlete to get better, he must abuse himself. The more he abuses himself, the better he gets under one condition. You have to recover from yesterday's abuse so you can abuse yourself more today. Well, that's more true in a concussion. Is like, okay, symptom free is not recovering from a concussion. You're just symptom free. And again, all 5 of those areas need to be evaluated. So let me ask you a question, because here's how we start with patient care, because there's no 2 concussions the same. But if your house is on fire, what would you do?
Well,
Well,
I
let me
would
tell you what you wouldn't
get
do.
out.
Let me tell you what you wouldn't do. You wouldn't start painting the house and cutting the grass, right?
Exactly.
Right? So you're going to try and put out the fire. Well, that's the first thing that should be dealt with a concussion is the neuroinflammation. And now for some patients, it's dealing with nerve stuff. For some patients, it's dealing with metabolic stuff. For some patients, it can be different, but you have to put out the fire first. So the practitioner has to put out the fire. Okay. Well, let's say you're under care of a great chiropractor, but the chiropractor really doesn't deal with concussions. What should someone do with their child? Well, I'd first of all take them to the chiropractor and say, okay, hey, listen, I heard about this guy and he wrote a book on concussions. Like, do you do any of this stuff? And the doctor will say, well, I know I can do the next stuff. Let me find out about the other stuff. They may or may not be doing it. Lots of docs do lots of different great things, and they might not categorize it like I have in the book, but they do a lot of those things. So that's the first place to start. But I'm going to give your listeners 2 easy tests that they should do, because in the NFL or college, when you see that tent on the sideline that they take an injured athlete to, well, that tent is not to cut out the noise. If there's 100,000 people there, a tent is not going to stop the noise. I think the tent, this is my own personal opinion, I think the tent is there because of all the gambling that goes on in sports now. So they don't want the gambling world to know and lose. I'm just guessing. Right. But the first test you should do, I'm going to ask you to do it. Okay. So Sherry, take the index finger of your right hand.
Okay.
Okay. Hold it out in front of you, way out in front of you. Okay. Now I'm watching you. Okay. So look at the palm of your hand. Turn your hand around. Do it. Okay. Put your pointer up. Okay. And now put it right in the middle. Okay. And then bring it into your eye. Now keep it focused. Bring it to your nose. Okay. You didn't stay focused. You're watching me. Watch your finger. I'm on to you.
So the listeners that are listening, he already busted me because he can visually see me. So you may need to watch this on YouTube. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's try again.
Okay. So hold your finger up. Okay. Now bring it slowly to about 6 inches. That's about 6 inches, right? Okay. In front of your nose, watch it with your eyes. Well, a little quicker than that. We only have 40 minutes. Okay. There we go. Hold it there. Okay. Blink a couple times and put your hand down. Okay. So that's called ocular convergence. It's a real simple test. So all you have to do is, okay, you start and you come in slowly and see, okay, do the eyeballs come together and can they stay together for about 15 seconds? Okay. If they cannot, okay, that's an indication that this is probably not going to get better quickly. So that with one test, you can tell, is a concussion, is this going to take a little bit of time, or is this going to be relatively quick to get over? Okay. So you can see all kinds of things. First of all, the eye may not come in. They might come in and stay there, but then one will drift away. And all those little things tell you different things. Okay. So the next thing is you can do, okay, so now watch me. Okay. So Sherry's watching me. Now turn your head side to side like that, but keep your eyes focused on me. Okay. Do you get any nausea, any dizziness with that? Nope.
Well, the good news is my answer is no.
No. Okay. And her eyes were able to stay focused on me. Okay. So now you're going to do the same thing, but do your head this way. Okay. Keep your eyes focused on me. Any dizzy, any nauseous with that.
No.
Okay. And her eyes stayed focused on me. Last one, now you're going to go up and down like this. Okay. Keep your eyes focused on me. There we go. And then any nausea, dizziness with that.
Perfect. I'm in good
Okay.
shape. So far, so good.
So far, so good. Okay. So now the parents can do that with their kids right away. Right. Those two simple tests. And if if you can't see what we did on YouTube, just do a YouTube search, ocular convergence, and watch somebody doing the test. Or you can go to our website called concussionology.us, and we've got some videos on there how to do these simple tests. All those tell us, and you may not have any symptoms, but it'll tell us, okay, you have some function that has been disturbed. And if your eyes can't do this, it's going to take a while to fix your brain. What's a while? It could take, well, it took my son almost a year, and I had well over 100 treatments in a year
Wow.
to fix my concussion. And I had all kinds of things like hyperbaric oxygen therapy. I had laser therapy. I was adjusted probably 5 days a week. I got acupuncture, and then I got some cold laser. And then I had some neurofeedback as well. So I was treated over 100 times in a year to help my concussion. And I probably look okay to you, but you know what? I've got days that I just know my performance. Like I lectured this weekend for the Kansas State Association on concussions, and I couldn't remember the Major League Baseball reference that I just talked about. I couldn't remember what journal it was in, and so I didn't get frustrated. I just said, okay, I'll just tell them about the study. And then about 5 minutes later, it came to me, oh yeah, it was published in blank, 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 blank. So sometimes my long-term, now I'm the only one that can notice that, unless you've heard like my daughter said, Dad, you were off today. Cause like they've heard the lecture 400 times, right? They would know. So someone who knows me intimately, like that would be able to tell that I'm still not 110% back from my concussion. But other than that, other than my intimate family members, nobody knows. Everybody says, okay, you're back. And
There's
again,
something really beautiful about what you just said, because it brought through the reality that it's not one thing. Yes, I got adjusted. Yes, I got laser therapy. Yes, I did a bunch of therapy to get to the place that I need to get to. And I think a lot of times people will estimate the amount of time and attention and patience they have to have, and the care that they're going to get back to being their self. And they owe themselves that. Like, do you think, I would say the majority of people that know better do better. And I think that's why you took that time, that 100 visits, to get yourself back on track.
Let me give you a different perspective. What's the difference? You ever been to a 5-star Michelin restaurant?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What's the difference between that and going to McDonald's?
Speed.
What
and
else?
Taste.
What else?
Quality.
What else? The
Cost.
presentation of the food,
Yes.
the smell of the food, the ambiance and the lighting in the room, the pictures on the wall, the wait staff of how they're meticulous about your every need. It's like you don't even have to ask when your water is one drop low, there's someone there taking care of you. Okay, so that's why it's a whole lot more money. So the reason why you enjoy that is it's a multi-sensorial event. It's not just shoving food in your mouth to fill your belly.
Yep.
Okay. Well, the same is true about a concussion. You have to treat the brain on multiple dimensions. There's your physical level, your emotional level, your hearing level, your vision level, your ability to feel things level. All those sensations must be treated at the same time. So when we outline a care of plan for patients, they say, oh, I'm going to my chiropractor already. Can he do the adjusting and you do this other stuff? And I just said, I'll tell them, I said, well, you had all the adjusting done and you didn't get better. You still have symptoms from your concussion. Does that make sense to you? It's like, okay, would you go to the 5-star restaurant and say, okay, I'm going to just take the beef and go over to McDonald's and eat it over there? Would that be okay? Or, I'm going to bring my burger from McDonald's into your 5 Michelin restaurant. And would that work? And so we tell patients like, okay, we can't do that. If you expect us to be the best we can to help you recover from this, it's like, okay, we're going to treat you on a multi-dimensional, multi-sensorial plane, because that's how when you got injured, you didn't like when I got injured, I remember all the sounds around me. When I was laying there on the ground, I remember the first person yelling what they said. I remember the ambulance driver that showed up within two. I remember all those things. It wasn't just me laying there, couldn't feel the right side of my body, my feet still stuck in my bicycle pedals.
Sure.
I remembered all those sensations. Well, the same is true when someone is treated. And that's true even if it's not a concussion. If they just have, neck pain or headaches or a bulging disc in their neck or low back, they still should be treated in multidimensional planes.
And then recognizing as we started this, which I think is so critical, not only is the symptom there, but the underlying function has to be improved. And we have to reflect while you went through 100 different treatments, is that you didn't say, well, my symptoms are good, I'm good. You went through and said, you know what? I want to heal. I want to heal to a place where I can be as close to back to being myself before the injury. But the other part is that we underestimate the power and the awesomeness of our brain. And
Yes.
even, and many of us, even today, I still talk to some of my patients from way back when in 2020, where they lost smell because of
Mm-hmm.
COVID. And I said, do you recognize that it wasn't the nose that was impacted? It was the nervous system that was impacted by a virus. And so just like a concussion, where there is a traumatic injury, there is a nervous system assault. And we have to reflect on what that means, and that it can be complicated. And these types of long COVID pieces or concussions that we don't address fully, like you said, can linger on.
Absolutely, absolutely. One of the favorite things one of my mentors told me was, God will forgive you, your nervous system will not. Your
True.
nervous system and your brain remember every traumatic event that ever happened to you, including in utero. Now, the great news is 99.999999999% is unconscious and never comes to the surface. But the ones that do come to the surface, okay, they're the ones that recreate problems. And then as you go forward in life, you must overcome those neurological deficits. Like you can't move your arm as far on this side as you can on this side. So, the quarterback then doesn't throw as well and throw it far. So he's got to change how he throws, right? All those little things um, uh, start adding up, and then your body has to adapt. So there's been a great book written by Your Body Keeps Score by Vandeklew. And he is a modern day PhD that talks about trauma. Now, a lot of it is, abuse trauma, sexual abuse, and rape, and those kind of things. But basically, he talks about the brain remembers that stuff, and it
Yeah.
keeps score. And so he has quantified what my mentor taught me, like almost 50 years ago, that our nervous system keeps score, and our body will adapt to that. Well, part of what we do is some of those traumas you need to erase the neurological memory, and if you don't neurologically establish normal function, and that's where you hear a lot of great things about neuroplasticity, nerves that fire together wire together. Well, they can fire together wrongly because of an injury, and then your body adapts to the wrong wiring, and then you start doing weird shaped things with your body just to get through the day. Well, you may be symptom free, but you didn't recover from that trauma, whether it's a concussion or a sprained ankle. So here's one of the other things, Dr. Sherry. I already got the topic for my second book ready. It's going to be called the pre-concussion syndrome.
Love
And,
it.
and here's what I mean by that. It's like, okay, you have these kids that are going to these tournaments. So let's say you have kids.
Yes. Two
Oh,
boys.
okay. How old?
And now they're 21 and 23.
Oh, okay. So, all right. But when they were, 12, 14, they would go to, a soccer tournament on the weekend or whatever it might be, right? And what happens if they twist their ankle in the first game? So they have an inflammatory response in the ankle. And okay, you tape it up and you can take some vitamins or you can take some drugs to get rid of the inflammation. Well, it doesn't really go away. What happens if in the second game they hit their head? So now they already have inflammation circulating in their body, and now they hit their head and they get more inflammation. What will that do? It's like putting a
That's a
match
cascade. Yeah.
on the fire when you're grilling in the backyard, right?
Mhm.
Um, so now here's another scenario. It's like, what happens if your son had allergies before the game and he's taking antihistamines? What's an allergic response? That's an inflammatory condition of the body. Now he hits his head with all these histamines in his body. What would happen to his headache? It would get worse a lot faster. So that's why you
So
need to pay attention to all five of those aspects, the matrix, when someone hits their head. You could probably say that for any, if you came to me and you said, there's nothing wrong with me, make me better, I would still look at all five of those things.
for sure, it's beautiful that when you bring it up like that, the pre-concussion syndrome is that we often underestimate the power of drugs we put in our body, that they are only treating the symptom. When we know that, as an example, we had Katie's Cause on, which was a mother that lost her daughter to Tylenol. And when we start thinking about these kind of moments and reflect on the insults that we put in our body, thinking that we're just taking care of the quote unquote symptom, we have to reflect on the long-term impact that we do. And that's why I think the holistic, the natural approach really gives us an honest reflection of what we're really treating. When you mask a symptom with a pain reliever, and that's why we had so many NFL players, you just stick them back on the field, throw an opiate in them, right? Yep. I mean, you think back
Shoot
to
them
these
up.
poor men and you wonder how they even got, I mean, most of them ended up very unhappy, the ones that we didn't catch early on. And I mean, we're talking the NFL through the 70s and 80s and 90s. And like you said at the beginning, these plaques that grow are the onset of early Alzheimer's and other decline in mental health. And that impacts everyone. That doesn't just impact yourself. It impacts your marriage, your relationships with your family members. And when you take care of yourself, you're taking care of your community. I just don't think many people think of it like that.
No, absolutely. So when let's take three examples. If a parent, their child has a concussion, they already start playing a videotape that's blank. They're worried about, okay, are they going to get better? Are they going to have cognitive decline? What are they going to be like in 20 years? Are they going to, oh, by the way, I'll come back to that. Wherever you go, whether it's ER, a chiropractor, medical doctor, the best neurosurgeon in the city, okay, the person should be giving you three pieces of paper after they do their initial evaluation. Those three pieces of paper should be, number one, your return to play or participation. What physical things should you be doing or not be doing?
Right.
Number two, for student athletes, a return to learn or return to cognitive function. What things should you be doing, not be doing? And then number three, should you be driving? So if you go to a facility or ER and they don't give you those three pieces of paper in writing of what you should or should not be doing, you're in the wrong place. It doesn't matter what profession they are. Everybody should be at least on board with, okay, I got to give them three pieces of paper to tell them what they can and cannot do. So that when you have a child that goes back to school, then you have to have a team being developed now. So the child has to have a team at home, a team at school, a physical team for, returning to play, but also an educational team for returning to learn. So that's number one. I wanted to just jump in there and say that. So three pieces of paper, no matter what kind of practitioner you go to. Okay. So back to the fears the parents would have. So they're, from the instant the child hits their head and they see something's wrong, they don't have to be unconscious, but if they go unconscious, like, okay, those things like ramp up dramatically. And it's like, okay, take a deep breath. It's only been 5 minutes. We don't have to worry about 20 years down the road yet. Right. So now when, our geriatric, if your mom or dad, if they hit their head and had a concussion, they'd have some fears, especially if they weren't getting better. They'd start worrying about, oh, I'm going to be a financial burden on the family. Am I going down the all? Like they would have a totally different set of fears they would have. Okay. And then what about like you or I? We have a concussion, all of a sudden, so we have trouble remembering. Okay. And then we worry about, okay, who's going to take care of me? It's like, okay, my kids are too little. They can't take care of me. My parents are gone. It's like, there's nobody to take care. Like we all have these legitimate fears, no matter who the person that gets the head hit, but their support group around them they're all going to start, I call them, they're playing a videotape that hasn't been made yet, right? So don't create a movie on the videotape. Leave it blank for a while and try and get the thing taken care of properly. But fears, you know what fears are, don't you, Sherry?
False evidence that appears real.
That's correct. Thank you very much. Fears, right? So here's one of the things that I ask patients to do, especially we had a young lady come in. I saw her this morning, actually. She's doing really good. She was in a car driving down Pacific Coast Highway in California. She was a college student at the time. She was asleep in the front seat and it was reclined. They got rear-ended by a tractor trailer going 70 miles an hour. She was launched into the windshield, slumped back. She wasn't wearing a seatbelt. She was launched back into the chair. The driver, which was her boyfriend at the time, got out of the car, came around to basically say goodbye to her. He thought she had died. And she opened her eyes and she says, "What happened?" She says, "I'm taking you to ER." Well, she didn't regain consciousness for about 3 days. The short of the story is over a year's time, they did a bunch of what I call ceremonial techniques. She had at least 10 MRIs, 10 CT scans. She had over 50 physical therapy treatments, and she got worse no matter what they did. And they basically said, "We don't know what to do. Go home." She had chiropractic care. She'd had chiropractic care all of her life before this trauma. Well, she gave up. Well, by the time she got to us, it had been 20 years of migraine headaches, 24/7. She would wake up every morning and say, "How much of a headache do I have? And what can I get done today?" So here's what I ask all our concussion patients to do, and that is, especially if they've had it for a long time. What's a long time? More than a month, right? But some of these people, college kids, they go years after playing college sports. We had a young lady, a volleyball player. She got hit in the head from a spike and knocked her unconscious. And they took care of her seemingly. Well, basically, it's been now 4 years since she graduated from college. She still has neck pain, still has headaches, still has nausea and vomiting every day.
Oh.
So here's what I asked them to do. I said, "Okay, I want you to write down for me the worst day you ever had in your life, and write it in infinitesimal detail, the worst day you had after this concussion." So I asked them to do the homework. Okay. And then the next day we come back and we just review all that stuff. Okay. So then I give them another piece of paper and say, "Okay, now I want you to write down what a perfect day would be like for you going forward. What is a perfect, at what time do you want to wake up? Who do you want there for breakfast with you? What are you going to have for breakfast? What are you going to do during the day? Are you going to get phone calls from your favorite person? Like, draw me a picture of what that perfect day," that's your homework. And so bring it back the next time I see you. So then the patient comes in, I've got these two documents, right? And so basically I take the document, I said, "Okay, this is where you are right now. I'm throwing this in the garbage. You must let go of this. I know it's hard. You've been suffering for so long, but you need to stop focusing on your worst day and start focusing on, here's where you want to drive the bus to. You want to take your life to this beautiful picture that you've drawn, and I'm going to help you get there." And then we came up with the term, okay, Dr. M, how do you fix a concussion? And it's real simple, Sherry. Inch by inch, recovery's a cinch. Yard by yard, it's really hard. And mile by mile, it takes a while. You've been worrying about miles. Let's just worry about the next few inches in the next 30 days. Let's see if we can impact your concussion in 30 days. And then we're going to take a deep breath and see, okay, what did we change in 30 days? Do you want to change that picture? Maybe you want to add some things to that picture of what your perfect day is going to be like. And because it might take a year and 100 treatments like it did me, but you know what?
Yeah.
Everybody can take a deep breath and give me 30 days to see if I can impact their health.
The special part moving in that statement that you said, the inch by inch, is you just have to focus on now, because we get so far ahead of ourselves that it becomes either anxious or depressed. And that was one of the pieces that I encourage our fellow listeners to recognize is you get too far ahead and you become anxious, and you get too far behind and you become depressed.
Yeah.
So
play what if.
That's right. You don't get rid of, if you're cold and you want to focus on getting warm, you don't focus on how cold you are. You focus on getting warm, and what would that look like, and what do you need to do to get there? And that all of a sudden it's two sides of the same coin. There's cold and there's hot, and you chose hot. You have to choose well.
Yeah.
And I
Exactly.
think that's the beauty of it. And as we move forward, you've done so much in the concussionology. And I really do hope that you put in place the pre-concussion book, because I think so many people could benefit from that and recognize where they are in their whole being care and how they're treating themselves now pre possible injury, because the best you can be is always going to be better if you end up having a trauma or a sickness or anything like that. That's that whole being reality that comes through. When you look at the chiropractic profession as a whole, and we know that we've evolved like medicine has, our treatment protocols have evolved. What do you think has evolved the most, and where do you think we're going in the future?
That is an awesome question. I'll give you the short answer first. The short answer is most people think of chiropractors as back doctors, and if you were to ask me what do I think I do, I would answer it in two prongs. The first prong would be I think of myself as a healer, and the sad part is I can't really say that to everybody because sometimes the patient just needs a hug. You know, they just need a hug and to know that somebody loves them and is there for them. Okay. And the second short answer I'd give you is okay, chiropractors are nerve doctors. And when I'm long gone, I hope my kids will say, and my grandkids will say, boy, those chiropractors really know about the brain and they know how to take care of brains, which means they can take care of the whole body and the whole person. That's my hope and prayer. And I hope I can give my little piece with the stuff on concussions to help not just patients be better, but doctors be better doctors too.
That is a beautiful way to end this segment. Dr. M, you are fantastic. You have led so many athletes to optimize life and so many patients that have come in your office. You've brought them hope. And I think with the faith that they can heal and clearly the love, which I love to say is the love is really the key, is sometimes you just need a hand up to get that love to know that you can be better. And anybody who's listening right now, you can't have hope without being able to cope. And that's why a doctor of chiropractic walks so well with you. So Dr. M, you're fantastic. Thank you so much. But I'm now holding you to finishing that next book and getting back on here to help our audience be better, do better, and have better. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Well, I want to thank you for tuning in to Adjusted Reality as we spoke with Dr. M about the latest insights on concussion and the care that you get through Whole Being Health. This podcast was brought to you by the Foundation for Chiropractic Progress. We know life moves pretty fast, and we want to make sure you never miss an episode. So visit f4cp.org/adjusted reality to subscribe to our newsletter. Interested in hearing from a specific guest? Well, you can send us your guest recommendations. That's what makes this podcast fun, is because it's about you and it's for you. Can't get enough of Adjusted Reality? Well, I am super excited to announce that Adjusted Reality is now a book, and it's now available in bookstores wherever you buy your books. And we want to make sure that you can buy one for someone you love. So give away what you want. Don't forget to subscribe, share the podcast with your friends and family, rate and review. If you're feeling so inspired to learn more about chiropractic or to find a doctor of chiropractic near you, you can visit f4cp.org/find a doctor. We appreciate your support and look forward, as always, to checking in with you again soon.